Hello and welcome to Your Neighbourhood Show. I'm Carolyn, and the reason I started this podcast is because it actually comes from my own life's journey of growing up in Mumbai, India, in a very strong, connected neighbourhood where pretty much everyone knew everyone. And then over my 22-year marriage, I inadvertently, here in Australia, got disconnected or isolated rather. And after my marriage breakdown, I was kind of reflecting on my life and wondering, how did I come from that strong community and connectedness, and now when I need support the most, I don't have it. And so I went on this journey of wanting to get myself supported again and build that network of support around me. And in the process of doing that, I realized that there were many others like myself, and it's everywhere. There's disconnection everywhere. And so what the podcast is about drawing out beautiful stories, amazing stories actually, of everyday amazing people from their lives at times when they felt connected as well as disconnected, and to normalize it. But then how do we then move from times when we are disconnected and feel supported again? I've been so lucky to meet some amazing people through this process, and what I've realized is when I'm intentional about getting to know somebody, I can get to know them in 3 to 4 hours. And that's been the biggest blessing for me. Welcome to Your Neighbourhood Show. I'm Carolyn, and our guest today is the lovely Lou Wilson. I'm so happy you're here today, Lou. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks, Carolyn.
A little bit about Lou. I actually met Lou about a year ago as part of some of the work that the Ubuntu Foundation does. We actually support the organization that Lou works for. It's called Yalari. And if you haven't heard of Yalari, you must look it up. It's an organization that actually funds a full secondary education for young Indigenous students, a work that I think is foundational for the future of our country. And it's a boarding school education. So, and there's many layers to it, which is amazing. It's beautifully thought out. It was started by a Indigenous man by the name of Waverley, but you can look it up. You look up Yalari, Yalari. That's a bit about Yalari. Lou is the partnerships and foundations manager over there. And apart from that, she's got 4 beautiful children. 3. She's got 4 siblings. Sorry, she's got 3 children. And she's also got 4 grandchildren. That's what I got mistaken. But prior to working for Yalari in philanthropy, she was a pharmacist. So you'll hear about how the interesting change between the two happened as well. And what else? So she's lived in a few different countries, but we're going to hear from her directly from the horse's mouth. So welcome, Lou, and thank you for coming here today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes. How are you feeling?
Okay. Not completely in my comfort zone, but
yes,
that's fine.
And that's absolutely normal. I'm still going. So we'll start, as we always do, with a little bit about your childhood. I know you grew up in Toowoomba, and it was a lovely community. But tell us a bit more about your childhood and your school, and a bit about that. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I grew up in Toowoomba. My dad actually grew up in Toowoomba. So he was a GP in Toowoomba, and so was his father. And I was I am one of 4, and second oldest. So mum and dad had 3 under 3, and then my younger brother Tim 7 years later. So I had
3 under 3.
3 under 3. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I had a really good childhood. I was really, really supported. Came home from hospital to the home that I lived in for all of my life. And
wow.
And mum, dad died, but mum moved out when I was 50. So 50 years.
From the family home.
Yeah. So I grew up there, and my children all had their childhood there too. So we were
That
really,
is so
really
special.
lucky. Yeah.
You only hear of things like that in India, because here in Australia, generally people move homes. They live in a place for maybe 7-10 years max, I think, and then on to a new suburb, not too far away. But so that's fabulous, and I really think that's very important when it comes to securing that network of support. Because if you stay in the same place and you put your roots down, those same, hopefully with other people around you in that same neighborhood.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So Mum and Dad had really close friendships, and, the children, of course, we grew up with the children of those people. And even to this day, we're still really close friends. So I've got a lot of friends who I've known since I was born.
Wow.
Which is amazing, yeah.
That is so good.
And I thought everyone had that, but, through my life I've come to realise that that's not the case.
Mm-hmm.
And also Dad was very close to he had a brother and sister, and my mum had one brother and she was really close to him. So, we grew up having Christmases and holidays with all my cousins, and we're really close to all my cousins. And
that's fabulous. You literally grew up with a village around you.
We did. Yeah, we did. So
what about school? How was that for you?
So school was, I stayed at the same school for 12 years, started when I was 4, so I was very, very young.
So when you say 4, was that like prep and what would it?
No, year 1. I started when I was 4, but I turned 5, 3 months into the year. But still,
yeah, that's young.
Very young.
Yeah.
When you compare it to
today, it's 6 years. You start grade 1. Yeah.
So, I think probably that was hard to be so young.
When were you the youngest, or was that how it was in those days where everybody started at that age?
Mostly they were 5.
Right.
But just because I was turning 5 soon after starting school, I was allowed to start. I don't think it's because my mother and father wanted to push me out of the house. Anyway.
Or they could have thought you were ready for school and very smart.
Maybe. It was a boarding school, but it was only boarding school in the senior school. So the primary school was very small, and the classes were really small, which is nice.
Which is what do you mean by small? Because I come from India where our classes were 60 students to a class.
Yeah, no, probably 20, even less probably.
Nice.
Some of my classes, yeah. And, 2 or 3 of the kids in my class were people I'd grown up with. So,
and you're still in contact with. Wow. Wow.
So.
And so you had a good schooling. You had no issues at school. You had a great childhood in your community. You had cousins. So basically, you had a wonderful foundational childhood.
I did, yeah. Probably, my memory of school, I didn't particularly love school. I wouldn't say it was the happiest time of my life, but still I had lots of friends and I did my best.
What was that?
Well, primary school, there was a teacher who was mean, really mean, and it's a long time ago, but I think I've had her for the first time in year 3, and she had favourites and she didn't like me, and I'd never in my life come across anyone that didn't like me. So I found it really, really hard.
Of course.
Yeah, and anyway, got through the year, obviously, and then the next year thought, oh, thank goodness, I've got through that year. And they changed the teachers around and I had it for another year.
Oh, no.
And out of the 7 years, I had it for 3 of the years. So, yeah, that wasn't
Yeah, look, I think teachers are so important, and especially early childhood in those primary years. We move out of home and into a completely new environment, and teachers almost replace parents for a large part of the day kind of thing. And
that's right.
If they're not nurturing and maternal almost, you know what I mean? It impacts a child. I'm so sorry to hear that. How did you deal with that other than Did you?
I think I just talked about it, and definitely Mum and Dad were aware of it, and all my friends knew what she was like. She was renowned, but it was okay for all the ones that were her favourites, I suppose. It was, but anyway, I got through it. But
would you say there were other children as well? Do you think that got her
struggled?
Yes,
For sure.
Oh, I think they need to be sacked, teachers like that. I really think so. Many years ago in 2018, I actually dated a police officer.
What did you?
And he said to me that his daughter was studying to be a teacher. And I said, wow. I said, she must love kids. And he says, no, not really. And I said, what do you mean? She says, it's just a job. And I said, oh, that's terrible. You have to love children to want to be a teacher,
You do.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Hopefully I think that's a really important profession where they should be selected. The selection process should be quite stringent. But keep going. So
I think also when you look back on your life, and I look at my kids' life as well, and the subjects you loved were the ones that you really liked the teacher.
Yes, absolutely. That in fact, you can like a subject because of the teacher.
Yes.
Even if you don't have an aptitude for it, you'll develop one. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so it's such an important role, definitely.
That's a very important point, actually. I loved mathematics, and because I loved my maths teacher, and I'm still in touch with her. She's in New Zealand.
Really?
And she recently visited Australia, and she messaged me to say, hey, Caro, I'm in town. And I went across and met her. She's in her late 70s, and the hug was just gorgeous. She's just like exactly that. You love a teacher, you love the subject. Yes. I went on to do a degree in mathematics, and I would kind of attribute that to the love for the subject.
Absolutely.
And then in your young teenage years, I remember you telling me you went traveling. So what was, how did that all happen, and what did you learn, and where all did you go? Give us a bit about that.
Well, so I finished school and worked hard and wanted to go to university. And so I wanted to do physio, didn't get into physio, but my dad said, pharmacy, you should do pharmacy. It's a great thing for a woman to do because you can work full-time or part-time.
Point.
So anyway, I did pharmacy, and so that was 3 years at UQ, and I stayed at Women's College, so left home for the first time.
So this is in Brisbane?
Yeah, in Brisbane, on campus at Women's College. My eldest brother, Anthony, was at Johns College, so I knew what to expect because he'd been there for a year. And that it was fun. It was a fun time. I worked hard, but, it was living in college was a great social life. And so 3 years pharmacy, and then you do a year which is a pre-reg year. Before you can register, you've got to work, and everything you do is checked. And so I did my pre-reg year at PA Hospital, Princess Alexandra Hospital here in Brisbane. And actually at the time, my eldest brother, Anthony, was a medical resident at PA, and my sister was a nurse. So
oh, wow.
Three of us.
3 siblings all in the same place.
Yeah.
That's amazing. My question to you was going to be, did you feel alone? But obviously not, because you've got your 3 siblings next to you.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yes. So, yes, I did a year there, and then my next job after I registered was at the Gold Coast Hospital, and I did a year there and saved money.
So what age is this?
Well, probably 21.
Okay.
No, maybe 22. And then saved lots of money and went with 3 friends to the UK, decided I'd have a year away. And because my registration in Australia as a pharmacist was reciprocal in the UK, I knew I'd be able to get work there. And so, yes, went and we had Ural passes.
Wow. I admire people that can just go off at that age. And I started traveling when I was 48 by myself. Keep going.
Yeah. So, well, I suppose I'd always wanted to travel, and my grandparents travelled a lot. And, for Mum's 21st birthday, my grandparents took her on a ship for 9 months around the world. So, and I'd look at all the photos of their trips and
amazing.
Yeah, and after Mum and Dad married, they actually went on a cargo ship. Dad was the ship's doctor, and they went to the UK, and Dad did a paediatric specialty there, and my eldest brother was born in London. So, we travelled. And Mum and Dad travelled a bit when we were young, so I always thought it was something I wanted to do.
So these girls that you went with, were they like these are childhood friends?
Yes.
From Toowoomba?
Yeah.
School friends.
Yeah.
And so you went to London, and then where
went
else
to
did you
London
travel?
and then the Euro passes were for Europe, and at the time it was really affordable, and we had first class Euro passes. So we had for 3 months, and which meant that we could go anywhere within Europe. And, sometimes we would, in the afternoon, we'd go to the train station and look at the screen and think, oh, which train is going all night? And we'd get on that train and get a compartment and close the door and sleep.
Oh, how
Wake
clever.
up the next morning.
Cheap accommodation.
Absolutely. We did do that on a number of nights. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a good tip.
Yes. Don't know if you can you probably can still get Euro passes, but I'm sure that
I've never been to Europe, believe it or not. I am going on the 22nd of April and doing the Camino, so that's my first trip to Europe. But so then?
Well, this was my first trip. So then travelled around for the 3 months, and then at the end of it, we were in Italy, and a couple of friends wanted to do some skiing, and I didn't. I'd only recently learnt to ski. It wasn't a big thing for me. So they went off and went skiing, and one of my other friends and I went across to Greece and travelled around Greece and met some Canadian girls and travelled with them, and then went to Crete and Santorini and Paros Island, and then on Paros Island, everyone left, and I was the only one left there, and I was leaving, in a few days.
Gosh, you're brave.
And met this lovely, gorgeous Greek man.
God, Greek god.
Yeah.
Did he have nice curly hair with an aquiline nose? I'm only joking.
So, ended up staying for a couple more months, and then went back to the UK and worked in a hospital in Portsmouth for 3 months. Went back to Greece.
So did you have a little were you in a relationship with this fellow, or
yes?
What's can you share his name or no? Don't worry, you don't.
His name is Costas. Yeah, Costas.
So
nice. We've kept in touch.
Yes,
he's not.
So you're still in touch with him?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's that's sort of part of the story. It's a bit of a long story, but yeah. And then I went back, and then I came back to Australia, and he wanted to be in Greece, and I wanted to be here. I was wasn't going to leave my family.
You really got on with this lovely. With Costas.
Yeah, he was very different from anyone I'd ever met
in
my life. Just a totally different upbringing, and his family didn't have heaps, but they lived a simple life, and they were so happy and so warm, and it was a really interesting time for me.
And you kind of said that he saw, if I remember, he saw you differently to how you saw yourself, or how.
Yeah.
And that's what you found really attractive and interesting, and helped you think outside the box. Is that correct?
Exactly, yes.
Tell us about that.
See a side of myself that I didn't know. I think travelling does that anyway. I think, if you, especially growing up in a community like I did, and you have to be conditioned and influenced by that. And so I think going overseas and traveling and meeting different people and having different experiences open you up to a different side of who you are, and you see a different side of yourself. So
what different side of yourself did you see?
I suppose that I probably had held back from being who I was, and I was more able. I suppose I felt more free. And later on, because we reconnected after many years. He made me see a side of me. I'd say something and he'd go, "Whoa, why are you thinking that?" And I'd think, well, I'm not even sure why I'm thinking that. It's just what I've always thought. So
we kind of come into the world, and depending on where we are and the families we are brought up with, we inherit a set of views and a set of, values which are hopefully good, but we inherit them whether we like it or not. And we don't always question them. We just kind of take it and run with it, thinking that that's how it is and that's how the rest of the world is. And then you meet somebody else who kind of says, "Hey, step back and look at this. It could be this, something else." And sounds like he kind of opened you up to another whole world of another possibility or possibilities.
Yes, yeah. And he is really smart, and his parents couldn't afford for him to go to university. They said he had to go to work, and so he left school and went straight into the workforce, and then sort of did university degree during that, while he was working, once he could, sort of afford to do it.
How was that for you to leave him, and when you had this lovely connection, unusual?
Yeah, I don't know.
Different.
You come home and you sort of get all caught up in the roller coaster of your life here, and.
But when you were leaving there, did you?
Very hard.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, very hard.
And then you come back to Brisbane.
Yes, came back to Brisbane and.
And what year is this now? Or how old were you?
So this must have been maybe 1985.
Okay. And you were about 22 or 23. 23, yeah.
turning 24. Came back home and sort of got back with my family and my friends, and fell in love and got married, and
that was this. Oh yeah, to your husband.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, and then he was a stockbroker, and we were married in 1986. And in October 1987, the stock market crashed.
Yes.
And he was working.
That was a horror, yeah.
He was working for a very small stockbroking firm in Sydney, and I was working as a pharmacist. And so the firm he was working for had a position on the stock market, and when the market crashed, they folded. They lost everything, and they went out of business.
Devastating.
Yeah, scary. I remember the night when it was all happening, and the market was just in free fall, and it was just incredible.
And did you have a mortgage at the time that you were?
No, we were renting.
Okay, so you were not vulnerable, or were you were not vulnerable?
No, okay. No. And so Mum and Dad my sister was living and her husband were living in London, and so they were already over there, and Mum and Dad were going to visit, and so we said, "What the heck? Let's go."
So no babies yet. You
no
had
babies.
Yeah.
We sold our car,
right.
And had used any savings we had, and went to London. Yeah.
And so when you go there, you've got your sister and her husband or partner, yeah? And mum and dad's gone on a holiday. Mm-hmm. And
so we bought a combi, like lots of Australians
yes.
do. And went to Europe and travelled around, and we met up with them. They had already had a trip planned, and so we knew where they were going to be, and so we sort of made our way to, and every now and then caught up with them, like in Florence and France we got together, and and then in Greece we got together, and
how did you support yourself when you were in England, or you were just?
Well, you were using our savings in Europe, so this was in Europe.
Yeah.
And then I remember I can't remember how many months we travelled for, but maybe 3 or 4 months. And I remember we were heading back to the ferry to go back to the UK because we'd run out of money, and we had something like 10 French francs left, just enough to get us enough fuel to get to the ferry. And then, went back to the UK, and I knew I could work as a pharmacist, and Stu had a job. He was a stockbroker. I think he maybe had a job lined up. Mm-hmm. We sort of just slotted into a bit of a life in London. I worked at Royal Marsden Hospital, which is a cancer hospital in Chelsea in London. And and then so that was for about maybe 18 months or a year, and then Ben, my eldest son, was born in London.
And did you have thoughts of kind of settling down there permanently, or it was just you went there because your sister was there and for a holiday, and then you decided to stay on?
Yes, I think we were always there for a limited period. We didn't know how long it was going to be. There was, nothing pressing to come back here for, but
do they have they would have some kind of immigration policy and stuff, or they didn't at the time?
Well, I was really fortunate because Mum's mother was born in County Durham,
right,
which is a little county between Scotland and England. And so I had the right to remain in the UK because my grandmother was born there. Yeah. And they're very strict, actually. And I think, you can't stay there for very long. Maybe, I don't even know how long it is, probably a couple of years maybe for a young person, but I'm not sure what the rules are.
That's good enough to give you a sense of the place.
Yeah, but we could stay there forever.
As in because you liked
if we wanted
it?
To. Yeah. If we wanted
because
to.
of your grandmother's, So you decided to have, you fell pregnant over there, and you decided you were going to go ahead with the pregnancy in London?
Yes, yeah. Because my sister, they had, her husband was a dentist or is a dentist, and they were coming home. They'd sold their place, but then they found out that I was pregnant and they wanted to be with us. And so they ended up staying on for a couple more months. So they were there for the first couple of months of Ben's life. So that was a great thing for me, great start, great support for me.
Did your sister have children at the time?
No.
That was lovely of her to stay back for you, to support you. But then she came back. She returned back to Australia with her husband. And your mum and dad?
Mum and dad were in Australia.
So they came back as well?
They'd been, but they were only there for a visit.
So now they're all back in Australia, and Lou and Stu are in London with a little baby, newborn baby. How did you deal with that? Because you had your family there, like a little warm fuzziness, and then suddenly they're gone.
Well, you just do what you can do, and you have no idea about how to be a parent, but you just sort of do your best.
I still don't know how to be a parent. I'm just giving it a go.
Look, I remember when Ben was, I don't know how many months of his life, we would take turns of sitting up, holding him, because we didn't know how to settle him.
Yes,
so he would sleep on us, and we'd sort of have half a night's sleep each.
The first child is always sadly the guinea pig. Literally, I mean, I had Alicia, my daughter, over here, and I had no mum, dad, no relatives, nobody, and that's why I asked you the question.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy. I was running a business, and it was challenging.
Yeah, very challenging. We were lucky because we met another Australian couple, and they had twins who were born within days of Ben being born, boy and a girl.
How did you meet them?
Through Stu's work.
Okay.
So he was a stockbroker, and so we became very close friends.
Yes.
And that was a saviour for me, really, because there was someone I could share with, and and I thought, well, this is hard, but she's got two.
I know.
It's twice as hard for her, so that helped as well. So.
Okay, and so then you kind of coped reasonably well in England, even though your parents and sister came away, but you met this lovely couple and they had twins and all of that. And you said you quite enjoyed when Stu used to work. You used to go down to some library or a park or something.
We lived in a village, well, in London, but in a suburb called Wandsworth Common. And like many places in London, there was a strip of shops and a beautiful park, the Common. And so I'd wander down. There was a lovely bookshop there, and there was somewhere where you could sit and read. And
oh, beautiful!
Yeah, and Ben and I'd go down there, and it was nice.
Yeah,
it was
and
nice.
You're not that old. I mean, you were about 24, I would imagine, 24, 25.
Yeah, and 26.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. And then you decide to come back to Australia. Why did you come back to Australia? What was
we came home. I came home a couple of times in Ben's first year of his life. We came home when he was a few months old to have him christened, and then I came home when he was 12 months old on my own, and it was funny because it was the first time that he'd ever got dirty. Because in the UK the weather's not always great, and I took a photo of him in Mum and Dad's back garden with the hose sitting in the mud. It's the first time he ever got 12 months old. Totally different lifestyle than we have here. So yes, we love Australia. I love Australia. I was always going to come back here. My family, I'm so close to my siblings, my parents,
You're so blessed, Lou.
I am lucky, yeah.
I'm really blessed that you're close, a great foundational childhood.
Yes.
Still in contact with close friends from school and, and your siblings. You've got a great relationship with your siblings. So
I do, yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. Which was really important to my parents because Dad and Mum had that with their siblings, and it was really, really important that we would have that too. So, I'm sure that they helped that very much.
Of course. I think they facilitate that. I know as a parent myself, my only ever dream was I want my children to be close to each other, and so that when I pass, they've got each other, because you've got each other, and that's, that's the only family you've got, kind of thing. Blood family. I mean.
Yeah.
Have you had any challenges in your life?
Yes. We came home from the UK, and then I was pregnant with Anna, and so she was born in 1991, and then my younger son Tim was born in 1993. And when we came home, we bought a block of land at Brookfield, and we were fortunate. We built our first home and lived there, and the kids went to the local state school, which was lovely because it's a beautiful community, Brookfield community. And so then, 2005, so Ben was, so then after they finished primary school, the boys went to Churchie which was on the other side of town, but their dad had gone to Churchie, so they went to Churchie, and Anna went to Somerville House, which is near Churchie. That was pretty well why she went there, because she could go on the same buses the boys went on.
Yeah.
And 2005, so Ben was in year 11 and Anna year 9 and Timmy was year 6. We were driving, it was in November, and we were driving to a tennis breakup with Ben. And I'd had a mammogram, but I just felt had my hand on my chest up high, and I felt a lump, and I thought, oh, that's strange, and sort of thought, well, I better go and check that out. And so next day went to my GP, and she of course sent me to the Wesley Hospital where they'd recently done the mammogram. They did an ultrasound and biopsy, and ended up, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh dear.
Which, it was
how old were you then?
Shock. 43. And
what stage was it?
Well, it was a small lump, but when they did the operation to remove the lump, they also take your some lymph nodes out from under your arm, just to make sure that there's no spread. And it was in my lymph nodes as well.
No.
Yeah, so it was a really, really scary time. And
how did you cope with that? What was that?
Look, my family again, my friends. I had to have chemotherapy and radiation, and so it's a couple of months of chemo first, and then a couple of months of radiation. So I was very unwell, but every day someone would bring food or produce, or everyone would be offering to help take the kids to sport or to school and of course Mum and Dad were with me, and my siblings and the community, the school community. Incredible.
So good.
Yeah, really couldn't have done it. And it was really interesting, Carolyn, because everyone tells you how much they love you. And I've since then I say to people, don't just tell them that you love them. If you love them when you think you're going to lose them, tell them all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always say it's so important to do everybody's eulogy when they're alive.
Yeah.
Like as regularly as you can.
Yes. Yeah.
My mum was ill for about 3 years before she had a stroke in 2015, and she brought her here for a year, looked after her, then she went to my sister, and then she went to India about 3 years ago, and her last 3 years she just went downhill quite fast. But every time I spoke to her on the phone, I would do a mini eulogy with my mum. And I just thought to myself, I know she's going, I'm going to tell her everything I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
I'm going to apologize for the trouble I gave her. I did. I gave her a lot of trouble. I was a troublemaker.
Can't imagine that.
Oh no, I was a naughty girl. Very rebellious is the word. I always questioned and rebelled, and my mom was a very proper person. So,
amazing that you were like that when you were brought up with.
Yeah, I always questioned, and it was just one of the things I did in my. 3 of us in our family, all 3 so different from each other. But yeah, simple thing was my mom wanted us to eat with a knife and fork, and I would deliberately eat with my fingers. And she would say, "Get your knife and fork out." And I would say, "Mom, it tastes so much nicer with my fingers." And she's like, "Go wash your hands. Eat like a civilized person." I said, "Well, what about all the other Indians? They're civilized. They all eat with their hands." So she couldn't handle well, she did in the end. And so I apologized for giving her a rough time. That was one of many things I would just argue with her for.
Yeah. So during that time, was having all the treatment, but I learned about a guy called Ian Gawler.
Yes.
And he had the Gawler Institute. And so I read his
in Melbourne,
book.
I remember, yes.
Yeah. And his book was You Can Conquer Cancer. And it was more about the holistic approach to healing yourself. And I remember, my oncologist at the time, I said, I'm doing this and this and this and this. And he said, which is all the alternative stuff. He said, that's great, Lou, but it's not going to make any difference. But these days they know that it absolutely does make a difference. So
I think if you got time on your hands, definitely. But yeah, anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so it was about, watching, being careful what you eat.
Yeah.
Because it's all about looking after your immune system.
Yes.
Because if your immune system's healthy, your body will you've always got cancer cells, but if your immune system's healthy, then it will kill the cancer cells. Yeah. So it was about.
Is that how you got into healthy lifestyle? And I know you look gorgeous. So, and I know you take care of your health and you're very mindful. Is that what that was the turning point for you?
Definitely why. Yeah. And so it was about, being careful what you eat. And, when I was sick, everyone was delivering food, but I had a friend who was a chef and she would deliver meals just for me that were beautiful, organic, clean, all according to, what I couldn't.
Oh, how lovely.
Could eat, yeah.
God, that's amazing.
Yeah. But it was also, the power of positive thought. But the big thing for me that I didn't know anything about until then was meditation. And now, that has absolutely changed my life. And I don't understand why it's not taught in schools and.
Well, they say children would pick it up like this if they're taught it in their grade, kindy and stuff like that, because as we get older, the brain kicks in and starts taking over and stops us and goes at 90 miles an hour.
That's right.
But children are, if it's taught at that young age, they will they'll take to it naturally, because we can naturally be in the moment. In fact, children are much more in the moment than adults,
Absolutely.
Imagine if they started their days at school with a 10-minute meditation session.
As if it was, a normal part of their life.
Yeah.
So, definitely it changed my life because it, obviously you have to deal with the stress because stress affects your immune system as well. So I learnt, when I felt overwhelmed, that I had a place that I could go to and where I could be peaceful. But, meditation's about, everything's arising in your consciousness, all your thoughts and the sounds and the things that you see and how you feel and your emotions all arise in your consciousness. But through meditation, you can sort of be an observer of that and not be distracted by that. So it allows you to be more peaceful or calm in a situation where you feel overwhelmed. But as you say, also it helps you to be in the moment, be present, and
not get caught up in your own thoughts.
Absolutely.
They say if you believe your thoughts, that's the start of all your misery.
Yeah.
Just listen to them, but don't believe them.
Yeah, they just take you away. And you can be somewhere incredible, and you don't even notice it because you're in your thoughts.
So you meditate regularly now?
Yeah.
No wonder you look peace and calm.
Actually, I know how to meditate, but I still have got to do guided meditation because I learn all the time.
Yes, and there's so many different forms of it, and thank God it's becoming more and more prevalent out there. So it's a beautiful, certainly needs to be a way of life. If every one of us got up in the morning and meditated for a little bit, I think we'll have a different world,
Definitely,
Tell me, any other challenges that you want to share?
Yes.
If you want to share.
So I had the treatment, that was 2006, and at the end of 2006, I very devastatingly, I found out that my husband had been having an affair, and so our marriage ended. And it was probably, maybe on top of the breast cancer, I would say
was this during the time you had cancer?
So he was having the affair during the time when I was having my treatment, and I probably had a bit of a sense of it, but I just knew I couldn't go there. And yeah, so it was, I would say, looking back at the time, tougher than the treatment, the cancer treatment, tougher than, because I loved him, and everything that I'd had as a child, I wanted to be able to provide for my children, and all of a sudden, it was, I thought, oh my goodness, they're not going to have that. But of course, retrospectively, they still had that. They still had me. They still had my family. They still had so much security. But at the time, it was just hard. It was hard.
I can imagine. And dealing with cancer is one thing, and then to hear.
And I still wasn't well, but just from the treatment, it really.
And did your family and friends know about this?
Yeah.
So that
absolutely.
So then
all
the support.
So helpful.
Oh, so that's so good.
Yeah.
You're blessed, because that's I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
First of all, have such a cancer, and then hear that.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
It was hard, but I realised, because at that time when I was completely overwhelmed and lost, I realised that you talk about connection and disconnection. I didn't even know what I liked. I'd sort of given my life to caring for my husband and my children, and I'd forgot to look after me and do the things that, of course, I adore my children. I'd do anything for them, and I love doing whatever I can for them. But I'd all the other things, I wasn't sure what I even liked. So I'd do something, and I'd think, oh, I'm really enjoying this, and write it down and start reintroducing all those things.
You kind of took your circumstances and looked how you can come out of that, and it became like a process of discovery of a completely new. Yeah, I was in 22 years of my life, Lou, I didn't do. I just supported my husband in our business, and
the same.
Then my marriage breaks down, and I'm saying, what do I want to do now? And I had absolutely no idea. I had no idea what I liked doing. I didn't know what I was passionate about. I was like, I started cleaning. I cleaned houses for 3 years because I refused to go and do something that I didn't love doing as in a proper job. So I would just ad hoc clean houses till I found what I loved doing.
Yeah. Well, and, exactly the same situation. I was,
I think a lot of women could relate to that as well, because we get lost in being there for our children, our husbands, our homes, our families, our gardens, our businesses, and then we lose ourselves. But coming into our mid-40s or somewhere there, I think women come into themselves and start to wake up to themselves and say, okay, now what about me?
Yeah. And for me, it really was a turning point for me, because, I think my advice to anyone that's going through a challenging time is just get through each day and the next day and the next day, because, with my life, I can look back on every situation that's been challenging, and, people have had far more challenging situations than I've had in my life. I've been very lucky, but I look back and I think that's why, now I understand why I had to go through that, because, so much comes from that, different doors open. And
that's very practical advice, one day at a time.
Yeah.
Just take one day and see how you go, kind of thing, and then go from the next day.
Don't look too far ahead, just get through each day.
Well, thank you for that. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that'll take that on. And then you somehow changed careers from being a pharmacist to working for Yalari. I'm really keen to share this with our customers. And I know obviously this is way after you've cured yourself of cancer and stuff.
Well, it was actually, so 2006 was when I had my treatment.
Yeah.
2007.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was not working. I wasn't back at work.
Yeah.
Because I was still recovering, and my youngest brother Tim was working in private equity, and he was at a private equity conference up in North Queensland, and Waverley Stanley, one of the founding directors, he and his wife Lou Mullins founded Yalari. He was speaking at this private equity conference about Yalari and his vision for Yalari, and Tim was just totally blown away. And he said when Waverley came off the side of the stage, he was there waiting and said, "Waverley, what can I do? What do you need?" And so they arranged to meet, and he rang me and said, "Lou, I think you'd be really interested to meet this guy." And so I went along and, met Waverley, and,
The rest is history.
he's such a wonderful person.
Yes, I know. I've met him, and the vision, as you said, it's just amazing the work that y'all are doing. Thank you, first of all, for that. On for all of the
it's a
people
joy
at Yalari.
for me to
Yes.
to have
Great
been involved. Yeah.
So, what was I going to say to you? What do you find? Why do you find working for Yalari rewarding?
So Yalari is, as you've said, is a not-for-profit that sponsors Indigenous children's education. So they select children from regional and remote communities. So the idea is that they will go away and get an education that's not available to them in their communities. So it's not for Indigenous children who are in the city, because there are plenty of schools that are available to them that are good schools that they can go as day students. It's for the ones that don't have access to a good education in their communities. And so they offer 50 scholarships a year. And for me, I have seen them. Now, I started initially as a volunteer, and then I volunteered on the dinner committee. Tim and I are still on the Brisbane dinner committee.
What's the dinner committee?
So we have a fundraising dinner in Brisbane every year.
Is that the one I came to last year?
Yeah. So we're on the organising committee, and we were from 2008 up until now. And then, so I did that for a couple of years, and I think around 2009 I needed to go back to work to earn a living. And I asked Waverley and Lou if they would be my referees for a job. And they said, "No, we won't. We want you to work for us." So,
wow.
Yeah, so it was sort of, I knew nothing about what I was going to do. I actually set up their volunteer program and ran their volunteer program. So had no idea how to do that, but you can do anything if you put your mind
and if you're interested in it. And I've in our own business, I've employed lots of people, and I used to not look for attitude. I used to not look for aptitude. I used to look for attitude, because if somebody's got good attitude, you can teach them anything.
That's right.
So you obviously had good attitude. That's why they asked you to join, irrespective of what you knew about partnerships and anything else, which wasn't anything like pharmacy anyway.
No.
Yeah. And by now were you still with your husband, or you were separated?
No,
or that
we
your marriage
separated.
broke down? Okay.
2006.
Okay.
Yeah,
So your life was starting to turn around, take new direction, completely new career path.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And so, I've seen the students start in year 7 and now, because I've been with Yalari for 17 years now, so finish school, go on to university, get into the workforce.
How lovely.
It's incredibly,
And just follow their
incredibly rewarding.
And now you'll have a new pathways kind of program, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And so Yalari was initially set up to help Indigenous children to finish school, to finish year 12. And so we have been successfully doing that for many years. And then, they were leaving school and we're thinking, well, really we should be helping them with that pathway after school.
Yeah.
So big part of our program now, because we've got 250 students in 20 boarding schools around Australia, but we've got 550 alumni.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they're quite actively involved in support systems for all these students that are still studying.
Yes, much more.
I love that.
Yes.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Because they know that they've been on the same journey that these students are going through. So they've got a whole lot more compassion, understanding, and they're of their own people of their own people.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
and,
beautiful.
talk about connection. Here are this group of educated Indigenous leaders who come from Indigenous regional and remote communities all over Australia, have had a similar educational journey. They're so connected because every year we bring all of the different year groups together. So we have different camps for each year group. So they're always keeping in touch and reconnecting with the students that are in their year.
I just think you're doing a fabulous job. It's not just the education, you're creating support structures, support networks for these kids once they finish school and through school, and their lifelong support networks. So that's amazing.
Yeah, and we're supported by incredible people like, your foundation and the government supports us, and corporations support us, and individuals support us. Philanthropic people are the most wonderful people. So I am so lucky, to have a job where I work with people like you.
Thank you, Lou. I often say that, just working through the foundation, I've met the most amazing bunch of people. Like it's another world altogether, because all working towards creating a better world,
Absolutely.
And it's been a real rich experience the last few years for me.
And so Waverley, he's such a wonderful example for the students, because he went to Mergen State School, and his teacher, his year 7 teacher, Rosemary Bishop, saw that he had a lot of potential. And so she went to Bill Dent, who was the headmaster of Toowoomba Grammar in Toowoomba, and she said, will you give Waverley a full boarding scholarship to come to Toowoomba Grammar? And, he started there, so yes, he got it. And in year 8, when he started there, he was the only Indigenous boy at the whole school. So really, really hard for him.
Yes.
And he was the only Indigenous boy at the school for the whole time that he was there.
Gosh, I would love to interview Waverley one day.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. So he's seen it, he's done it. And, he finished school and then worked in the education department, but always wanted to create Yalari so that he could give other Indigenous children the same opportunities.
Has he ever?
And so he, his wife Lou is the CEO of Yalari.
Yes.
She, they've just given their life to Yalari.
I feel so lucky to be part of the Yalari family, actually.
Well, we're very lucky to have you.
Oh, and you do treat all your donors and partners as a family, which is really beautiful. Yeah,
we do. They are part of the
one
family.
last question, or before the last question, tell us a little bit about your side hustle. I think that's amazing. Has that come off because of the little
the Greek
fun thing that you had in Greece many, many years ago?
Well, it is really.
Okay.
Yeah. So I import olive oil from Greece. I have a little business, and oh my goodness.
It's delicious, by the way, that bottle you gave me.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't ever plan to have an olive oil business, but it sort of just happened because he was sending me his olive oil. He's got 16 trees, and he's got a place in Athens, but he also has a place in Laconia, which is in the Peloponnese, and it's a very rural part of Greece. It's the mass of land that is closest to Italy, and so there's, oranges grow there, but, olives grow everywhere. They grow in the wild there. It's the perfect environment for growing olives. And so, for thousands of years, trees have been growing there. And so, yes, he would send me his olive oil, and, I would give it to my family and friends, and I'm like, my goodness, this is incredible. And I'd say, send me more. And then he had to get olive oil from his friends, and they'd sit, and I thought, this is ridiculous. You must be able to buy a premium Greek olive oil in a deli in Brisbane. Couldn't. That was
it tastes very different, by the
2015.
So what is it called?
Well, the business is a layer of Monovasia, but the olive oil is Phileas of Sparta. So Phileas in Greek means friend, and Sparta is where it's from. So Sparta's in the Peloponnese.
And can anybody access this product, or how do you sell it?
Yeah. I sell it online, but I do have it in lots of delis around.
Right, okay.
Yeah, around Australia. Lots.
So say
of
that
delis.
again slowly for our guests to hear you, in case they go into a deli and see this bottle, then say, Sparta of what?
Phileas.
Phileas of Sparta.
So it's a white tin with black branding. It stands out. But
it doesn't look like an olive oil bottle. It looks like it's like a white long tin kind of thing with a little cap on it, screw cap, yeah.
And it should. Olive oil, the three things that destroy olive oil are light, heat and oxygen. So it should be in a tin. And you shouldn't have it on the windowsill in the sun or next to your stove. And you should keep the lid on tight.
Oh, good. Thanks for those tips.
Yeah.
So you could potentially, if you had a steel, that's why they have those big steel tins for olive oil, that they have big ones. But if you
all temperature control.
Yeah, sorry. Glass.
So yes, it was, it wasn't intentional, but I love doing it because it wins awards in the international olive oil competitions because it's very healthy. It's very high in polyphenols, and polyphenols are antioxidants.
Yes.
So it sort of aligns with
your journey of health and recovery.
Of health and well-being. Yeah. And I
good.
I do a bit of.
You've taken your life and turned it around on a path of passion and everything you love doing.
Yeah.
So I reckon there's no wrong in our lives, is there? Things happen for a reason.
No,
and
absolutely.
Absolutely. One last question, Lou. If you had to give advice to your younger self, what would that be?
Well, many things, Like I said, your relationships are absolutely paramount. So nurture them and tell the people you love that you love them. But also, I think be aware of what's right for you. Meditate or whatever you need to do to be introspective and to understand what's right for you. And the biggest thing for me is that I've always struggled with communicating that. And
communicating that to
what's right for me. I'm much better now, but there were many years, I think, and that's how I think I lost myself, was because I couldn't say what was right for me because I probably didn't even know what was right for me. Yeah.
Beautiful advice.
Yeah.
Importance of getting connected to your own self and what's important for you.
Yeah.
Without that, you can't connect to anyone or anything else. Otherwise, you become somebody else's,
puppet.
Well, yeah, puppet or whatever. But
you're
not master of you're not the, the captain of your ship, basically.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for coming here today, Lou, and sharing yourself very authentically and vulnerably with our audience.
Thank you.
And we'll meet up again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, thank you, Carolyn, because, it's been really interesting to think back on my life, to reflect on my life. It's been, because I've, obviously thought a bit before I came and tried to get everything in the right order, but, I've had challenges, but my life's so rich and so full, and I'm so lucky. I have my children, and I love their partners and my grandchildren. So my life's good, but thank you for that, and thank you for all you do. It's
my
incredible.
pleasure.
Thank you for being you, for being so kind and warm, and for your friendship and your generosity, because all the things that you've done for so many people has been life-changing for them.
I have to do a namaste to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
If you've enjoyed the show today, I would really appreciate it if you could put a like on our YouTube channel, leave a comment, share it with a friend, because we want to share these stories of connection and disconnection with as many people as possible. Because look, all of us go through life. Not all of us have connected lives all through our lives. We experience disconnection. We're up, down, and all over the place, and it's absolutely normal. And that's what we're trying to do here at Your Neighbourhood Show. So if you enjoyed the show and loved Lou's story, please put a like on the YouTube podcast or the Spotify or Apple, and share it. Thank you so much for listening.